You know, right now, currently in America, there's a lot of people who they feel strongly about the government and what they do behind the shadows, right? Like you, a lot of people would consider this, the freest, best country on earth. But does that make me happy knowing that I'm achieving that under the guise of some dictator who sends them to hell because they didn't obey his every word? I don't know if that makes me exactly want to be there.
Yeah, great point. I know there's they say there's two motivating factors for people: the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of pleasure. I mean, I guess we could put our focus on, okay, I don't want to go to hell, or I guess we could turn it on the creator, saying, why do I have to listen to you to go to your home? I mean, now just turn it around on yourself. Why would you let someone into your own home if they don't want to listen to you? You probably wouldn't let them in either. So why should the creator?
Well, there's a big difference, right? Where if I'm not creating the person with the understanding that free will and all the chaos here on Earth will essentially make a lot of people who I know won't get in, and I will have to punish. There's a big difference there.
Okay, but the great thing about this creator is he's willing to let everybody in. But there are rules to enter, just like I have rules for my home, you have rules for your home. It's only logical. Because the rules literally act as protection for the people inside.
But dude, the
And
creator created everything. It created everything. There isn't like a house that the creator's hanging out with all his boys and everyone else is dejected to hell. It created everything. It is everything that
yeah,
exists.
so
It's not
are
like
you?
a dude in a house that's rocking a party that you have to like do these things to get in.
I think so. But okay, I
Well, I
understand why
think
people
that's
don't think so.
incredibly diluted. No offense, but it's completely false.
Okay, so what would you? Okay, let's say some. I don't want to follow any rules here on Earth. I hate the creator. I want to fight the creator. If I'm put in front of the creator, I'll try to fight him. What should he do with me? Force me? Like, should he just brainwash me to love him and let me in, and then I can take advantage of all the other souls there? Because I want to do that.
Eden.
Go ahead.
Wouldn't you say like he force created you and then he forced you to go into the to get into the party, like to get it to get into the party you got to follow the rules.
No, he didn't force me. He's not forcing anyone to join the party. He's not saying.
No, he force created you into the position where you have to make the decision. It's a curious proposition.
Okay, great point. I'll tell you this though: with my free will, I've learned now to enjoy following the commandments. People have been conditioned to break the rules because of they thought a false sense of freedom. But we see what happened. We have prisons overloaded. The rules are for our protection, and I find joy in following the rules, and I'm happy to follow them freely. I think the rules give me the freedom on this world, so I'm just grateful for that he placed these rules in laws here. And I can't imagine wanting to follow a creator that doesn't have any rules. I wouldn't want to be near that creator. In fact, I don't even like watching.
Certain people are born with a predisposition for following the rules, and then others are not. Some have more of a rebellious bent, almost born out of their nature.
That could be the case, but I believe people can find healing. And then when they're sober, they can make the choice, a rational choice. Most of the time, there's some sort of imbalance where they can't focus. They're dealing with pain, etc. So they can't really make a rash decision.
Yeah. I'm not saying that the world doesn't have to be fair. I would just say that the notion of like forcing something into existence, with if you've got infinite power, that is we do this with animals. We sort of animal husbandry and all the rest of it. We bring things into existence to serve us. But we're not like sort of this thing. Maybe it doesn't have infinite power then. If you had infinite power, why would you do that? Unless there's something else that you're trying to achieve, which is always the clause that I try to get out of jail with.
Okay. Thank you. There's probably a reason why he's patient and doesn't just start killing people who don't believe him.
Well, that would defeat the purpose of creation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right. He's a loving creator.
I've got a slight different angle to this argument. It's got some holes in it, but I'd see how you'd get on with this. So just imagine, like, how do you improve yourself just as a person? Like, how do you do it? Like, obviously we're not perfect, right? We all admit and we do bad things. Sometimes we can do things that we don't recognize are bad at the time and then we reflect on it later on. Sometimes we can act in weird ways and we realize, actually, I was not doing the right thing there and my mind was in the wrong place. But how do we learn that? I would say the Christianity and religion in general just kind of teach you that. Philosophy teaches that. Secularism, is that the route you want to go down? I don't know. So I guess for me, looking at it slightly as an outside observer, even though I have Christian family members, I would say that it's to better yourself. And if you're in like God's position, you're the creator, and you're wanting to let people into your kingdom, so to speak, then do you want people in there that aren't willing or open-minded enough to improve themselves? Because this is the situation where the reason why Jesus had to come to begin with is because those types of people that were doing bad things. So then you would end up in this vicious cycle of letting everyone in do their own thing, and then everyone killing each other, and then everything has to reset. Do you know what I mean? So I guess I'll let you
Yeah, but
tangle with that argument a little bit.
the problem with the way you're framing it is, as the three of us kind of said, was he made us, right? That's the difference, right? He made the people that you're saying he wouldn't want in there.
No, he
It's a
wants
big
all of
difference
us.
between like going over to someone's house and following their rules.
No, yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay, yeah, he made people for sure, but he wants all of his creation to go. But the problem is some of the creation now have decided not to want to go at all.
Well, that's why I
Like,
Yeah, I
said
like the idea.
the logic should be the other way around of why should I want to go?
Well, I don't think so, because if we are extending this this logic and we're saying if people aren't willing to better themselves and then it ends up that society gets worse as a result, then if we're looking at it more of a philosophical and like the greater good type of thing, the utilitarianism kind of view, even that's something I don't agree with totally, then these people that aren't willing to better themselves, they could infect society as a whole, like take like Hitler, even if he was your child, would you want to put him down? I think you would.
Fucking Hitler.
So
Well, when
that's
you when
kind
you
of
say better yourself, that's subjective, right?
is
Are
what,
you
sorry.
saying better yourself and when you say better yourself, that's a subjective statement, right?
Well, it depends what kind of worldview you follow it, which is why I said Christianity versus like the secularism. Because if you're talking about secularism, then yes, it is subjective, and yes, it can mean basically anything. There's no absolute truth there. So, which is why the Christian doctrine, I would say, is probably more superior to that, because that's more of an absolute worldview in comparison.
I
well,
mean,
Well, I don't
wouldn't it
agree,
just be
right?
like,
Like, go ahead, Rick.
oh, I'm just thinking, like, what is this? Well, it's subjective. Is it subjective though? I don't know,
To
man.
better
Well, it depends what
yourself, I would
philosophy you're
say.
following, right? Because the secular worldview is subjective, because it can basically change depending on what the society is at the time. Whereas the religious doctrine, it it can't change unless someone, like you say, is
It
going in
can
and
change, and it has changed. That's the problem. It actually has. It's we're working with this idea that it hasn't
so the
changed. It's
Ten
definitely
Commandments have
changed.
changed.
Well,
Uh,
it's a
the
split, right,
New
Rick?
Testament. Pardon.
When
You'll
it
have to
changes,
Split.
it would be considered a split off from the core beliefs, right? It's not. There's still
Yeah,
people
yeah.
in the old ways, but
So we
Yeah.
know that there's like some of the text is like the way that it's written's changed, but the end result of like the interpretation, I think, still remains. That's what I how I see it anyway. Perhaps I'm wrong on that,
No,
but you
they had
can't.
a very sort of violent and like a bit of a cruel god, and then he became a loving god. So
Badass
his
God.
technique or something
Yeah,
seems to have
badass,
changed
man.
over
That's
the ages.
badass. It's not cruel. It's badass. Take down them people. Take them down. Don't. It's having someone there that shows authority. You can't be. You can't be a wimp and then letting people do the thing they've got to do. You've got to show some
I don't know
authority.
what you're referring to. I contextual, like, just to maybe add context to what I stated, the
Go on.
Bible has gone from quite a sort of a cruel God in the Old Testament to a loving God in the New Testament. There's a change of personality and character
Well, that's why I
between
was
the old
asking
and the new.
about what happens if you don't get in, right? Because to me, he to me it's just a guise, right? You can say it's loving, but if you put me here and I don't follow your rules because of the world you set up for me, and then I'm sentenced to damnation eternally, I don't know how loving that's gonna feel.
Maybe you just go to another party, bro. Maybe that's all that like there's like gods. All these gods have got different parties around the place, and like you got into this one, and you don't really like it here, so you just go to a different party.
That is the
Yeah,
idea,
I don't know.
essentially.
Yeah, you want to go to that other party.
But they've got like, but like for our
Kanye
interpretation of
West
the
to
after
tell you about
party,
that.
yeah, our interpretation of the after party is like it's bipolar. We're like, oh, it's either gonna be shit or it's gonna be great. Like, and it's not that. It's just different parties happen in different places. I
Well,
don't
if we
know, man.
take
Like
Kanye West word on
personally,
it means sacrificing your own mum. So I don't know.
oh yeah. Well, I don't know about all that. Sometimes I wonder whether or not they're just these guys are so good that they don't actually do half the bad shit they say they do. This is just to keep us in a state of fear. But I don't know. There's got to be at least a little bit of it, right?
Personally, I think seeing the extreme levels of love that humans go to, I think the creator matches that and goes beyond. So I don't think there's a God that's indifferent to humans. I think the God is the rule maker. But yeah, I guess everyone can make
I
their
wouldn't imply
own
indifference.
determination.
I mean, like the good question I've always like, how many people? What's the percentage of people, or how many people are getting into this party? Like, where's the cutoff?
Great point.
See, they always say that there's judgment, right? You have to be a Christian or this, but I don't know, like, is there a percentage associated with this, or is there just a quota that you've got to hit at some point?
It does
And
tell you. I don't have the answer, but I have been told before and I forgot. But it does tell you the types of people that will get in. So you'll be able to deduce based on like what you're seeing in society. You could probably work out an estimate of how many people you think would get in.
yeah,
Because there are
do you
parameters
reckon?
that for getting in. I don't know what they are. I'm sure Taking Back Eden will be able to enlighten us on those. But there are parameters set. So if you actually got a Bible, read it, you found those parameters, you could probably come to a deduction of how many people in society you think will get in.
Do you reckon like people sort of aim for, like at school when you're doing the test, I'm just aiming for a C plus in this one. It's all I want. It's all I need. You got people living life to get into heaven, just running C pluses everywhere.
Yeah, I believe there are instances of that. For instance, there'll be I'll have to look it up, but I believe there's heavenly rewards if I'm not mistaken. So maybe let's say someone did more than others. Yeah, there might be some sort of reward.
There's a heaven within heaven. They got the like up on the top level. What do they call it? Like on the balcony.
The
On the
upper room.
balcony, like hanging above heaven.
Also, look at what we're doing right now, right? We're talking about him and spreading his word. So technically, we're all going to get in.
Oh no, I think I might have said some blasphemy stuff before, so he might not be happy with me.
Well, I don't think you
I don't
said
know. I'm
anything
also
blasphemous. You've not.
Yeah.
You're asking questions and showing more like an optimistic worldview, in my opinion. So I'd say that's a good thing.
Okay. Let's see if I can remedy that. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of the most appealing concept here for me. So far of this notion of like, where did consciousness come from? Like, why are you born into this place where you know nothing before and you got to learn shit? It just kind of makes more sense if you chose to come here rather than being sent and forced into it. But it's a decision that you've forgotten that you made. Like, I've made decisions in the past, probably like 10 years ago, that you forgot that you made, and they're still enacting themselves in my life today. I don't know. What's a good? Can't think of a good example of that. Maybe I just like chose to start reading like some book, and that book had an effect on me, right?
Is it
So I don't know.
what's it?
Makes the
Is it the
most sense rather
butterfly
than
effect? The butterfly, is it inevitability? Kind of like the butterfly effect. So that's kind of something that you're kind of alluding to, I guess. But that's something I don't believe, because our parents had free will. They made decisions. They canoodled, and we came out as a result of that. Were we meant to be because
see, but
of?
they say that you selected your parents though.
I don't
That's
know.
the proposition. It's particularly like a Vedic kind
I wouldn't say
of point
so.
of view.
But I don't know.
Um,
I think some things are meant to be, like, perhaps you'd say that God uses people like to do his bidding, but I wouldn't say that he put us here. I would say that there is free will, and a part of that is like our parents make decisions, our grandparents make decisions, and we're here.
well, I don't know.
More so, it is
What is it? People, God uses
by
people
chance.
to do their bidding or something. Like that mean
Yeah,
God
I've heard people
chooses some
say that
people not to
before.
do his bidding? Like, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but like, where does that? I mean, like, it implies that that other people are not biddable by God.
Well, he wouldn't
Or
choose
maybe
those
not. What is it?
people,
God just select them for his bidding. Of
but he'll
course,
be
yeah, great
influential,
excuse.
right? So you hear people that say that they spoke to God, they see God, they've got a relationship with God. Even Whitsitt said something along those lines. So
I've
um,
heard it. Yeah.
it's if he wanted to if he wanted someone to do something for him, and he shows himself to them, or he influences them in some way. I'm sure if the devil could influence you and play Mario Kart over reading the Bible, then I'm sure that something that the
Yeah, but
God could do is
Anton
greater
LaVey
than
says the
Mario
same
Kart.
shit, man.
Pretty much playing the
Anton,
same
yeah, I know,
game, but
but
who's better at it.
Anton LaVey, like the Satanists say the same thing, man. That they're like, that they were touched by the Creator.
I'm not sure what they say. Can you expand on that? So, what did the Satanists say, that they spoke to the Creator? Or,
Yeah, for sure.
so, and then became
I mean, this
Satanists
is what,
because
like,
of it.
this. I
Are they
just
talking
think
about the
that this
Creator as in Satan
phenomenon
being the
of
Creator? Or are
people
they talking?
justifying. Have we got a delay, or I don't know?
No, I can hear you fine. Sorry.
Maybe I'm not coming. Okay. It's alright. I was jumping into before. What was it? This phenomenon of people claiming connection with the creator being, and then using that for justification. I think it's very, even if it is true, you should probably steer away from it. It's such claims are just kind of pointless in the first place. If that's a personal conversation you're having with something up there, you go telling people about that. Like, what's the point?
Wait, you
You
mean
you
that?
can just
Sorry. I was just trying to say. You mean you? Sorry. Finish your point. So I was just gonna say. You mean the thing that God made me did it is not a good excuse? That's all I was gonna say.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it is a kind of, yeah. It is a bit unfortunate that
But
it's not a great
if you're doing what you
conclusion.
think, yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Do you get where I'm coming from, though? Like this idea that I've got a personal relationship with God, and this is the reason that personal relationship is the reason for why I behave and do the things that I do. Yeah, you can, like, anyone can do it. Anyone can make that claim, and it's just kind of redundant. I don't mind if you do it. I don't mind if, like, in personal conversation, if I asked you the question like why you do it, you can say that.
What's
But if
interesting?
something like, I see
What's
in the
interesting
debates,
though,
man,
right?
people invoke this stuff. Like,
But
they invoke that as the reason, and it's just like, don't do that. Like, anyway.
But what's interesting is people that say those things and then dedicate their entire lives to it. if this is something that you're lying about and trying to just do for attention, is it something that would give you enough motivation to literally dedicate your whole life to? I wouldn't say it would be, to be honest. But I was kind of interested in your point on the Satanists. I really wanted to understand this about the Satanists, and you say that they talk to God or something, but the Satanists, what are we getting on out there?
Well, they've got justified reasons. They speak to an entity, right, that informs them and gives them reason and purpose for their actions in the world.
But they know they're talking to Satan, that's why they call them Satanists, right?
Sure, yeah.
So would
But it's
that?
still their creator.
But so do they interpret Satan as the creator of the universe rather than the creator of the universe? Then
They've got it's slightly more complex, and generally in the sense of that Satan's actually the good guy, and that the God creator is persecuting Satan. Thus, they think that they're sort of defending the true and righteous good God.
that's interesting.
Every single
Basically,
religion seems to be looking into this.
Satan's used his bidding to trick those people to victimize himself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're familiar with the demiurge sort of concept, yeah?
Yeah, I would say that they've probably been deceived. And if they knowingly accept Satan as their god, then I would say that is probably over the line in terms of what the creator would
But
think.
they're not
Depend.
like, I mean, you might call it irrational, right? But these people exist and they think it's rational. And they're
Yeah.
having a human experience just like you're having a human experience. So how the freaking hell is that happening?
What's
So
their like?
it means that if there is, even if they might be a little bit nuts, but if they can arrange a coherent sentence and convey their ideas in something of a logical manner, you might not agree with their reasons necessarily, but if you had their belief, then you would understand their reasons, right? And they're still they're just another human having human experience. So how wrong can it truly be? I'm
Well,
not
how
sure.
do they engage with the world? I would say, like, what do they do? Are they doing good things? Or are they doing bad things? So I think it comes down to that ultimately.
Most people think they're doing good things, and I suppose do they? It's maybe they don't think that they're doing good things. Maybe they think that they're doing something that's justified. It's usually justified, right?
Is killing
They commit.
justified?
I'm
Is
justified to steal money from this store because the world's hard. I like drugs, so I'm going to go steal the money.
I
That's
wouldn't say that's
morally
justified.
justified. Yeah, but for them it is justified because
I
that's why
think
they're doing it.
there's a philosophy that you could kind of beg the question a little bit, and that's Kant's philosophy, which is kind of like if there's a murder at the door and they're coming, and this is where Christianity wins over secularism. If there's a murder at the door and they're saying, is so and so in because I'm going to kill him, like obviously lying is not a moral thing to do. So to do the right thing, you wouldn't lie in this situation, and then you kind of let morality play out, so to speak. But under Christianity and the doctrine there, you do have duties to protect. However, under secularism, there's no real justification what you can do after that. So, that's kind of the thought process that I would go down when it comes
You're saying
to.
secularists have no reason to protect other people.
Well, it's not a duty. You don't have the duty to protect. And what do
Not sure
secularists
about
say
that.
about? Well, they kind of go on the utilitarianism kind of doctrine as well, that whether philosophy. So then it's kind of like, well, Hitler said the greater good was to kill all these people, so it kind of has holes there as well. So
Yeah, that's what I'm sort of referring to a little bit. But it's
but
almost
but yeah,
secularists may rationalize because I was kind of in that position a little bit there, but like I kind of thought that what was it? Like my decisions should sort of be like whatever you're like it's going to inform an idealistic society. So I got a utopian vision of how it should work. And my behavior, if I don't comport myself with what my idea of utopia is, then you'd be a bit retarded, wouldn't you? So, or you'd be fallible. You always fall short of your own kind of ambitions, but at least like a secularist still would have an idealized utopian society. Thus, they would know, like they would have an idealized set of behaviors. They wouldn't just sort of
this is the
say that
problem
that's not my
because
problem.
it's their idealized society is just based off the personal preference of that group of people at the time, which can change over time, and that's the problem you get into with that approach. That approach you take talking about morality.
I'm not sure if I agree. I think even people who sort of pick up the Bible as the so
Yeah,
how
so
should we refer to
secularists,
that?
there are
Religious?
secularists that will take the Christian doctrine because they think the Christian doctrine is the right way to kind of order a society because it works. So then you're not technically a secularist in the eyes of a secularist, or are you? Because, and this is the problem, because it's only subjective. There is no real answer to it.
I'm going to quickly look up like some sort of aspects of secularism so I can engage with this a bit more. Anyone else want to jump in?
I think the communists were
So
secularists,
one
weren't they?
basic,
Have a look at them, how they went about in their worldview.
nah, secularism seems based on naturalistic considerations. I suppose man is natural, at least in some.
It's basically
Yeah, man.
constructing a world without God. That's probably the easiest way to think about it, without getting too into the weeds about all the different angles of how people view it.
I mean,
Divine
what's the difference
command.
between secularism and atheism?
Well, it's kind of the atheist way to construct society. That's what it is. It's kind of that's why I define it as a way to construct society without a god, because it literally is the atheist kind of way of constructing society, ordering society, so to speak. So, being an atheist, you should know all about secularism.
I'm not atheistic.
I'm
Certainly
just
not
saying, like
anymore.
anyone who here is, I'm sure someone said it earlier, so they could probably chirp in on that.
Probably. I'm not sure. I don't think. Look, whatever religion. This is my other thing as well. I don't like religion is not even what it purports itself to be. As far as like it just claims to have ownership of the creator God and or the interpretation of the creator God. Religion is actually just spiritual politics, in my kind of estimation.
Is the spirit is the what? Say that again.
Religion is spiritual politics.
Spiritual
They've
politics.
politicized this. They've politicized the spiritual sort of
Yeah.
interpretations.
Which is why you get some
Kind of
Christians that say they
seemingly
don't
like,
like religion, but they're Christian because religious does as a
well, yeah, because
political
it's
kind of,
institutional.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Vatican
So
is very political, isn't it? And that's something that I don't like either. I completely agree with that.
I mean, I say that you can never really actually truly take religion out of people. You can call yourself an atheist all you want, but you're still going to have aspects of your character and human expression that has religiosa sort of sentiment. You're never going to get away with it. I think I kind of concluded that probably mostly through listening to Jordan Peterson at the time. And it still makes sense and resonates with me now. So it's like this whole idea that you think that you can take the boy, like take a person out of religion. You're just never going to be able to take them. It's just not going to happen. In fact, all you end up doing is creating sort of like homunculi, like psychological traumatization. But as I say in that also, it's like I'm recognizing that religion is a poor term because it's just the politics of spirituality. So
Well, that's
it's
it,
just
isn't
that
it?
I don't
I
like the
think
term spirituality. It's too much woo-woo associated with it as far as what I'm trying to
you've
really
literally
get
just
at.
struck the nail on the head there, because what you're talking about is purpose in life, and that's what religion gives a lot of people. And if you take purpose away from people, then what do you turn into? You like a lost soul, like confused about your gender and start mutilating yourself. That is literally what I'm seeing at the minute anyway.
Yeah.
You're trying to find purpose, and what you go to the most extreme things to find that purpose, which you won't find in the end anyway, and then you end up rejecting all your actions. This is why, at least being brought up in a Christian society, you do learn, even if you're not like a dedicated Christian, you've still got that embedded into you, and that's literally what you're describing to
What's
me.
embedded?
Well, we've been from the UK anyway. You know, we went to Christian schools, which we sang the hymns. You know, we learnt the stories. We learnt about the
Mhm.
purpose, and then we take that away with us. And people that don't have that, then they've got to find their purpose other ways. And sometimes, if they can't, then the depression rate of the country goes up. Is what I'm kind of attributing to that. And yeah,
I
you
don't know, man.
become.
The Chinese seem to be doing fine. Well, I mean, depends on the definition
Well,
of fine, I suppose. But
if you take away purpose, you could end up. That's half of the reasons why the mouse utopia might always fail. They had no purpose after that. There was nothing to do.
Yeah,
Are you
that's
familiar with the
problematic
mouse
as well
utopia?
because I mean, yeah, but like, doesn't it sort of suggest that we need to struggle? And
yeah.
if
I
yeah,
think struggles.
um,
Actually, I've got a really good example for you. So I know a guy, and he wasn't. He was very ambitious, like growing up, and he's made a lot of money now, and he's lost all his ambition because he's got money. He's come complacent, doesn't need it. If he kept going in that kind of giving that energy to where he was going, he'll probably be like massively famous now, have loads more money. But because he got to that point where he was like, I don't really need to work any harder, and he was happy. He got complacent, and now he's just
Here's the
like
thing on here's the
he's
thing
just
on how the struggle helped you. They tried to build a biodome. You know, we're trying to go to Mars and stuff, trying to see if we can make humans live in. They tried to grow trees in it. The trees would just fall over because they didn't have to struggle because there was no wind.
well, so like, does this like then imply that you know, the powers that be, the social engineers, like they're justified in their actions because we would create such an easy world that we'd basically self-implode. So are we not kind of ending up in a slippery slope situation where we sort of start morally justifying the
no.
behaviors of the controllers?
There's a line, I would say. You need to struggle, but not to the point where you can't survive.
Yeah, but they can't control that. Like, you know, they're just trying to create the overall system. You know, if some place is a little bit harder than the other, and you know, they
Well,
can't
I
keep
think
it even
struggling,
Steven throughout the entire thing. They got to make the struggle, or else the mouse utopia will go into overdrive and we'll start eating each other.
I think just going to work 9 till 5. Even if you're doing that and you're on a fairly good wage, it's still a struggle. Even if you got a very good wage, perhaps you're earning £1 million a year and you're doing a 9 till 5, that's still a struggle, I would say. And the struggle is it's required up to the point where if you don't do it, then things will fall apart pretty much. So,
Well, why is that? Why do we need to struggle?
well, it motivates you. If you become
It,
complacent if you don't. If you've
it
got
solves the problem
everything,
of a crisis of
Is
meaning,
it
essentially.
the
yeah,
crisis of what?
A crisis of meaning, purpose.
yeah.
If you don't struggle, it would
Mhm.
seem that if everything's so easy, it starts creating a crisis of meaning and purpose, and then we get like, you know, the downfall of our mass utopia, as Jeremy likes to point out.
Yeah, I've been struggling with the concept for a while, right? Because
You've been struggling with the
this,
concept of struggling. Sorry, I
um,
had to get that in there.
well, I have these
Hold
two
on,
ideas, right?
real
Where
quick, Anchovy. Anchovy,
Go
real
ahead.
quick. I only got 1 second to talk. Just like that other guy said, the struggle needs to not be too much too, because if there's no wind, the tree will fall over. If there's too much wind, the tree will fall over.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Anchovy.
that's a very
So
good
you look at
analogy.
you got a
Actually, I didn't get that
Goldilocks.
analogy first time you said it, but yeah, that's a good analogy. That.
I even made it
You got a
better. You didn't even
Goldilocks
think it was
theory.
Yeah,
possible to make that analogy better and bring that
yeah,
science to it a
yeah.
better
That was
analogy.
class.
I guess I have these two concepts um, where right now I struggle with the idea of um, you know, I feel like purpose and meaning has been hijacked for a long time by materialism, right? Um, but then on the other hand, materialism has also been the source of um, a lot of things that have bettered our lives. But I'm not sure which. I don't know if they're intertwined or one needs to be tweaked more than the other. But I feel like people can find that source and meaning outside of materialism and a 9 to 5 at minimum.
Yeah, and it's got to be something it's got to be something you like doing as well. And that always helps, and that'll also give you more purpose if what you're struggling to do is something that you enjoy. It's still a struggle, but you enjoy it and it gives you purpose.
No, but
But
then
what
you
I'm
find
saying is,
something
does
that's
it
cool
have
to
to be
do
a
that you.
struggle?
Sorry.
No, but the issue is that you find something that's cool to do, and then its novelness like wears out, so you got to go find something else to do. You get bored. I'm real bad with that.
Yeah, well,
I,
at the end of the day, like, what is purpose? It's probably that you do what makes you happy, right? Happiness is probably at the core of it, and the purpose is how to get there. That's kind of the mechanism. That's how I see it. So if you grow it as you get older, you're getting wiser, and your ambitions and stuff are changing, then so will the purpose along with it. So that'll include changing jobs and moving around and doing what you do.
Oh, maybe I'm taking struggle the wrong way. Then you guys are saying it. Like when you say struggle, do you mean um like there's an actual wear and tear on you, or are you saying struggle as in like this took me some time to do? Because there's some things where they're challenging for me, right? But um I guess I don't put them in the struggle category, right?
I guess that if it's challenging, it's still a struggle, right? There's still a learning curve there, and it requires time. But then if it's wear and tear, then that's probably it. I don't
So
know.
you're
I'd say it's
saying in the
your
technical
fault.
sense, like it takes you some effort to learn. It takes time.
Yeah, I'd say struggle. There's like a threshold, right? It's like you start struggle could be waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and having to deliver a paper round, and then you're done for the rest of the day. It's getting up early in the mornings could still be a bit of a struggle. There's not much of a struggle, but there's still like elements of a struggle there. But it could also be like working in an oil rig, absolutely ripping your body to shreds and risking your life, the process, and killing yourself. So yeah, it's
Uh,
where's that
well, that
line?
that's
And
how I feel. Most people are struggling right now. Is
yeah,
when you're struggling, right? It's usually I think of the people who they they're not liking what they're doing. They're stressed out to the point where their anxiety and their depression is climbing, and that's what I thought you guys were talking about
yeah,
struggling, like at a
literally, yeah,
soul
that's what
level,
we
not
were.
not a technical level.
Yeah, and that's because that's where purpose links into it, like because you want to be struggling at doing that thing which gives you purpose, not that thing that doesn't. Because then you're an empty vessel, just doing your 9 till 5, not really thinking with any purpose to life. You're just a robot, basically. Whereas if you're struggling and you're doing something that's meaningful to you, perhaps like I don't know, whatever you want to do. Perhaps you want to be famous, or you want to, I don't know, do whatever you want to do. But you're getting up, you're tired at the end of the day, but you feel relieved that you've worked a full day, you've done what you want to do, you're happy about it, you feel like the sense of achievement, and you can pay the bills at the end and eat at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas where's society going at the minute? Like in the UK anyway, the middle class is pretty much evaporated. You're either in the higher class and you've got loads of money, or you are very struggling. You literally, if you don't work that 1 month, you can't afford to pay your bills. So, which is too much, because you need to have a bit of a buffer there in case, because not every day you will want to go to work, and you might need a break because you might hurt yourself or something. But people can't even afford to do that now, so you literally break yourself, and that's why the heart attack rate's so high. Like, I think that's the leading cause of death. They're like across the world, pretty much.
The
And
problem
what?
is, the
And I
problem is
stress.
that it probably is why men die faster than women, because we do, you know, I've been on a lot of construction sites. I do have seen women on them, but let's be real, a majority of it's guys. But oh, I was gonna say something in your last point. What were you
Yes,
just
and
talking about?
if you yeah, and if you're the man of the house, I know people don't like that term, but it's still true. Like, and you've got to deal with the
Oh,
stress of the house. You've got to deal with the bills. You've got to deal with all that. That's another tear on
I
you.
remember what I was gonna say. Since the 40-hour work week has been initiated, the average human productivity has increased 450%. So here we are, decades and decades and decades later. We're getting 450% more work done, but we're working the same 40-hour week for generally the same pay. I know the pay has changed, but it scales with cost of living. It's not that far off. So it's just not, they're just milking us, is what's happening. We're like cattle.
I mean,
Well,
yeah, they've
how much
taken
did
all that
inflation go?
value.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I think that they're like basically turning all that value creation, that extra 450%, basically in on man itself. Whether they be, I mean, what is that? What is that extra productivity anyway, Jeremy? Like, they make a couple more magazines a year or something, like, which like the content within magazines is just to, like, you know, make other people like entertained and idle potentially. So it's just like creating the feedback loop that they want.
But it was interesting how he was talking about wages as well, because if you look at what's happening at the moment, I was just looking at like what did inflation go up last year? I think it was somewhere like 10-15%, and then the average wages went up. I think it was like 3%. I know the NHS got a 3% pay rise with inflation up 15%. So that's another squeeze on the employer, and which just making things slightly more tighter for your living. And some people not doing the jobs that they want to do. It's pretty horrendous to get up in the morning to do a 9 till 5 to something you don't want to do, come home and you've got less wages, even though you've got more experience.
We pay millions and as a society, we pay millions and millions of dollars for people to like hit a ball with a stick. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's crazy. Come to think of it.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
I had the football on in the background last night. You're just hearing the commentators talk, and they're like, it's beautiful, it's gracious, it's mesmerizing, it's fantastic. I've never seen it before. Like, you know, I've seen this shit day in, day out. I've never seen it. It's like, you know, he did the impossible. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, the hyperbole is
That's
just
their
over the
job,
top.
right? They gotta sensationalize things.
Oh yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, their job is literally just to sit there and make it sound like it should be relevant to us. I don't get it.
What do you guys think about inflation anyway? Have you thought about it much, or you're not really bothered about how everything is increasing in price?
You can't ask me. I think the whole economy is bullshit.
Um, yeah, I think it's turning in on it. It's like, this is what the trick is. They create occupations that allow, like, you know, what would you say, like one industry to sort of feed off the psychological, like, what would it be? the zeitgeist in order to just basically suck your luge.
I did watch that film ages
I don't
ago.
know about the other countries, but in America, it seems the only help we get every, so few years is them trying to raise minimum wage. But then what do the companies do? They turn around and raise prices. So it's like, it's not doing anything.
Yeah. The real problem I see is printing money, because that's what causes inflation, because that product will still be its true value. So when you're printing more money, you're just diluting the current money supply, and what that does is it has a ripple effect on people's savings. So say if you've got 10 grand in your bank and then everything goes up 10%, that 10 grand's no longer worth 10 grand, right? Because all the commodities in the market have
So
gone up 10%.
would you stop loaning then, in your interpretation of that? Like the printing of the money mostly comes from the loan creation, yeah?
I'd want
The
to stop
creation of
printing
mortgages
money,
and most.
yeah. I would still loan money, I
So
To
just
me,
wouldn't print money.
it's bullshit, right? Like, the only reason I see why that logic works is because of international trade, right? We need the rest of the world to agree that our dollar is worth a certain amount, and vice versa. But I mean, you can make the argument that we need international trade, but if most of your work and trade was coming from within the country can just agree whether or not you print more or not of it. The country can just agree what a dollar's worth.
Yeah, pretty much. So why pay tax if you could print it whenever you need to, you know?
Right. It's a completely arbitrary system that
Yeah.
relies on the involvement of world trade, which I guess you can get into that whole argument, but I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah, the way they talk about it is pretty peculiar to me. Like you got this Reserve Bank. So here in Australia, you see like on the national broadcaster every so often, it's like the Reserve Bank has decided to, increase loan repayments and this sort of. It's like, what is this entity? It's a freaking private entity that like
Yeah.
no one has any weighing in on. And
What's
people
even
just
worse as well, all these
run
debts are
money out.
so tangled. Like we're in debt to China, China's in debt to us, all these private companies, like all these banks and stuff, everyone's in debt to everyone. So it's not like you can't pay your debts, because then the whole system will just collapse, and then that's it. Everything will just fall in on itself. So it's something that you can't get away from now. We've gone. Yeah, how to reverse that is going to be very tricky. But I'd say number one is stop printing money, like, and then just spending it on ridiculous stuff. Like they
There
were
is
doing
no
like art
getting money
lessons.
back.
Like I know on the US budget, they was giving art lessons to people in Afghanistan or something, which is funny.
Yeah, there is no getting this money back. I don't think we just got
Yeah,
to stop it. We got to like stop the hemorrhage.
yeah,
Basically,
literally, just stop the
that's the only
hemorrhage.
choice we got. This whole idea of
But
reparations is only within the. If you want to break that, you got to go outside of it, and unfortunately, that means you have to just basically start. Just got to zero every. All you got is what's in your hands. Maybe like what you're living in at the time or something. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Instead of
yeah,
like Thanos's clicking and getting rid of half the people, like just zero everything. There is no more like there's no tens of millions in bank accounts digitally. That's just the house you're in, and if you rent it, well,
yeah,
you own that now.
yeah. That would be alright, wouldn't it? But that's not
That'd be
what would
interesting.
happen. It would be like, if you can't afford it, you're on the street. Sorry, laddo.
No, it's only based on the fact that they can enforce such a proposition. So
True. There's those theories postulating this is by design as well, because they want the system to collapse to bring in the new world order. How familiar with
pretty
are you
much,
with that?
yeah,
Yeah. Are you on board with that,
yeah.
or
Yeah, pretty much.
that's
This seems to be
interesting?
the most sense, right? Like they need to shock this, like if you want to go for a great reset, if you want to change people dramatically fast, then yeah, you need to put a shock to the system in order to. I mean, that's basically like we gave up human rights about 4 years ago. We didn't give up human rights, right? But we foregoed human rights to what was considered to be like a morally higher principle of safety and all that nonsense during the pandemic. So it's clearly malleable. So I think that's one of their forms and tricks. And if this is why I'm kind of with the guys on this as well. Like, you don't want FE getting out too much, because if it does, they're going to press the big red button.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
I kind of
When they
I
do.
don't want them to press the big red button, but it would be interesting to see the consequences.
Because it's one of those things that when they do actually press the button, then the resistance would be greater. I think it would probably actually help.
I'm not a subscriber of the long term plan they have, but so what I would attribute it to is I just think there's extremely greedy, selfish, evil people that get into power positions and they do whatever they can to maximize their gains without any thought of the consequences on the country.
I
That, or they're
suppose the
just
only difference
completely fucking stupid.
between yourself and, like, I don't know, myself, I would say, is it's just how much they can actually get away with. That's the only difference. We kind of actually agree that, like, power begets power, and power corrupts power corrupts, and
Yeah.
absolute power corrupts absolutely, yada yada yada. It's just like how much you actually think that they can get away with, and I think it's quite substantial. Anything that is too small, anything that is too high, anything that goes beyond your field of vision, even stuff that's going on inside of your body, like the interpretation of the nature of disease, is up for grabs, because it's all sort of viewed through the lens of like the human experience, and that thing, like that human, that's so malleable. It's basically a hall of mirrors inside your head going on psychologically. This is why you get all these different like psychological expressions of what it is to be humans. They all seem to think that they're making rational decisions.
Yeah.
At least they would claim that they are making rational decisions. I do too. It's not like I'm immune to what I'm suggesting, but it just seems to be the nature of it. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you see these trends that are happening, don't you? And it's like, and that's the kind of thing that makes you wonder, because it's like, why is it that, is it BlackRock and Vanguard? Like, there's another company, I can't remember what they call it. It's like, why do they own all the shampoo? And then they also own all the treatment that helps you gain hair when your hair falls out. And then there's all these, like, what do you call it, when not reparations, but when you go for a claim and like a payout, they give these payouts to people that have used the shampoos and the hair's fallen out. So it's like, is there a link there? Are they just feeding themselves? Probably. But you see stuff like that, and then it does take you down the rabbit hole.
Problem, action, solution, man.
Yeah, that's
Like, I'm
it.
surprised, Anchovy, that you are kind of not knocking on the same door as us, just from
Yeah, I'm actually
observing us.
surprised by that.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Papa just laid out the what is it? The problem, action, solution.
Yeah.
You're familiar with it?
Oh yeah, I was saying, it's a conflict of interest, right? They own the poison and the cure to the poison.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
it.
not only that, but they created the poison in the first place to sell the cure, which is actually
Yeah.
more of a problem, to then sell you another solution to the problem, the solution
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
sell. Like, we are in a constant sort of whatever this battle is. It's like it's a snake. Like, how have I said it before? You guys know what an Ouroboros is?
Sounds like
The
a
idea of a
Snake
snake.
snake
eating its
eating
own
its
tail,
tail.
right?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So they're just making economic Ouroboros, and the magic happens basically through human interpretation. So
It's like the infinity symbol, isn't it? The snake eating its
yeah,
tail. It's like the Meta logo. It's kind of represents. Is that? I think that's what it represents, like infinity.
well, this is what they've got to complete that circle. And when they go to create new industries, they just look for. They're like, I kind of imagine it like if you just mapped it out. There's like circles within. So like if you threw a bunch of like pebbles across the surface of a lake or something, right? You got bigger circles and smaller circles. Hopefully, my analogy is not getting lost, but yeah, they just sort of sit there and they can sort of spin up one of those cog wheels and they can make it bigger and bigger, like the pharmaceutical industry, and then it's now moving into the trans stuff. So
Yeah.
what they do is now they're pumping all of the this sort of pride, the trans agenda, and all the rest of it. And on the back end, the pharmaceutical and medical companies are starting to
Oh
provide
yeah.
services and beds for this. So all they have to do is just sit there pumping the what would you say, like the polymers into your water
Yeah.
and the propaganda into your children. In 20 years' time, they're going to have a fantastic industry, and it seemingly doesn't really matter what they create. If there's money at the end of it, people will sort of do that profession. Like, I don't know who these doctors are who are performing sort of like. I think that there is a very sliver of a case to be made for abortion in very very specific, detailed propositions. I mean, it's a bit. I don't want to really go too much into that track, but these people who are just doing this stuff willy nilly, like just for a buck. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that
That's
goes
crazy.
deeper. I think though, with the old abortion stuff. I think it goes deeper. You know,
And surely
I
they
mean,
must think that they're providing a service to save these young girls' lives. Like, there's got to be they
no.
think that they're
Do you
morally
know the
justified and they're
founder?
doing it for moral reasons.
I forgot her name. I'm going to find her name. Her name's Linda something, I think. But basically, she founded the abortion, like the first abortion clinics, and it was basically with the objective to keep the black community down. So they just wanted
Yeah,
to.
Planned Parenthood. Yeah,
What's
I
her
heard
name?
it.
Do you know her name?
That wasn't her name. It's the name of the organization that spawned from her
Yeah.
endeavors in Planned Parenthood. But I think it was the Rockefeller lady, wasn't it?
Was
Or
she
maybe it was the
Rockefeller?
Rothschilds. Rockefeller or Rothschild. I always get the two mixed up. But the wife of one of the two was like
Right.
one of the main proponents of Planned Parenthood, and yeah,
Yeah.
it did seem to actually target more black women. Although it wasn't sort of officially said, I think she did slip a couple of times though publicly.
No, they were
It
quite
said,
public about it from what I like. They wrote publicly about it from what I look. I know Candace Owens did a thing on it, and she was like exposing that through like the whole Trump thing that were happening last year. She had a whole piece on it, and she went through the whole history of it. But yeah, it's pretty mad. Just child sacrifice. We've been doing it for thousands of years.
it's pretty funny to think that, right? Like, peoples that are in the Western world learn about history, and you learn about sort of these ancient cultures that practice sacrifice, and you got a sort of Apocalypto, whatever that movie is, by Mel Gibson. You got that vision in your head. And then when it comes to modern society and abortion, like it doesn't, like, if you actually to make that comparison, you'd be considered to be a very, you'd be an evil person for making that comparison.
Yeah, I know.
Margaret Singer.
Margaret Singer, was it?
Yeah,
Yes, that's the
yeah.
one. Yes. What did I say? I was way off.
I was on YouTube,
To
but I
this,
had to jump over to the app. I was like, I know this one.
Yeah. There's a good one. So do you know AOL? Have you heard of the company AOL?
sure.
So they provided internet. There was very big company back in the day, like when the internet first sprung out, and they actually got fined because they were selling antivirus software, and then they got fined because they were also selling the virus. It was like a massive
Oh,
thing. So
for sure, man. That's
they were
just
selling the
revelation of the
virus.
method right
Yeah,
there. That's what Bill Gates has been doing from the get-go. And then the
Yeah,
crazy thing is, like, I really do, it's the way I think anyway, is like they propagated the notion of the computer virus in order to reinforce the notion of the actual sort of the biological virus.
yeah, like
It was like,
predictive programming kind of thing. You think? Yeah, it's
well, they
interesting. I'm not
just set
thought
up
about.
the analogy, and then they just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah,
And it's just this hypernormalization that occurs when you keep repeating things, which I don't know. I was having a chat with Osco, just in text chat on Riggs's server. He just doesn't get it. But anyway, yeah, you can just keep saying stuff over and over and over again. It makes it sound more reasonable.
yeah.
Like, I mean,
You
the
get
difference
familiar with it.
between the flat Earth, like the sky and the flat Earth, yeah, like it's a pretty ridiculous notion. Like I get it, and in reality, to make that interpretation of like the sky being sort of a reflector and coming from somewhere else, rather than actually being the thing that's actually there. But the idea of a bloody nuclear bomb in the sky, going for billions of years, is also just like absurd. Anyway, I just don't understand how they can't recognize these claims as both being absolute, like crazy to our own sort of human experience base level.
Yeah,
It's one is scoffed at, and the other one is like, oh yeah, makes sense. And that's like the power of normalization, repetition.
yeah. It's also just being familiar with something. You kind of know it, and then you trust it just by being familiar. There's do you know when they were first putting up them wind farms around where we were,
Right.
people were quite resistant to it, so they were putting up smaller ones, and then they replaced those smaller ones with bigger ones because people got used to the small one. It was like, oh, it's all right now, so they just stacked loads of big ones up, and then no one said oh because they were used to the smaller one. Kind of
How they
same
do it, that's a
principle,
great
yeah.
example. Yeah, I love it.
What do you think about global warming? Well, global warming, climate change. Yeah, global warming, climate change. I don't know what the term
I'm
is
trying to
now.
work out how the world floods. Like, how does that make sense?
How the world
Where's the
floods.
water come from? Yeah,
Is it?
how does the sea level rise on a globe? That makes
It,
sense.
isn't it because the ice caps melt and then
Yeah,
it all?
that is the excuse that the water sits above sea level that will fall down into it. But there's also they also, like, when you dig into the arguments, they say things like thermal expansion of the water because the earth heats up. The
Right,
water
the
heats up, and
molecules
hot
are
water
slightly.
expands a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But I've got a good study actually. I dug it out probably about a year ago now, and I read it. And there's this part of the study where and this is pretty amazing. So basically, we're kind of sold the idea that it's the density of CO2, right, that causes global warming, and it's because we keep pumping out more fossil fuels. It increases the density of these these gases that then create the greenhouse effect. But there's this study, and I think it was 200 parts per million of CO2. They increased it to 400 parts per million, like a really controlled experiment, and they found that there was literally hardly any change within the type of greenhouse effect. So basically, you got the effect. It was quite early, like it was within the 200 parts per million. You got the effect, and then anything above that, the greenhouse effect didn't really like change
Yeah.
at all. So, and the guy, and I watched this doctor guy on YouTube, and he was going over the paper as well, and he just explained it. It's like when you paint a garage red or whatever, you want to paint something red, you put that first layer of coat on, you'll get the majority of the color there, and then when you put your second layer on, doesn't really change the color that much. And he explained it like that.
That's a great one. Yeah, like that.
But it's a